guys. Welcome to today's episode of the Hoopslink Podcast. My name is Daniel Carlin. I'm here with today's guest, Ryan Razooky. Ryan owns multiple gyms throughout the San Diego area. He's recently just opened a brand new facility in Murrieta. He's run camps all over the United States and globally as far away as the United States. As far away as East Africa. He's worked alongside other great basketball minds like Gannon Baker, Jordan Lolly. He's been a lead trainer at EBC and Ballers Life Junior All-American camps, as well as being a featured trainer for Dr. Dish. We're excited to have him on the podcast today and learn from him. Welcome to the pod.
Thank you. I really appreciate the invitation. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, man. Well, I think it was funny. I was telling you when we were chatting about you coming on, and I had seen your content come up on my algorithm for probably a good year over the the course kind of leading up to you opening the gym in Murrieta. At first, it was kind of up in the algorithm. I didn't even realize you were based in California and were relatively local.
Yeah.
But I always said to some of my other coaches, some of my other guys, like, I appreciate that when I see this guy, he's talking about basketball vocabulary, he's explaining actions. It's not just a trainer that is, showing the same two dribble pull up, spin move, basic
Clean,
stuff. There's
behind the back snatch into the punch drag, double cross, hesitate. It's a lot. So I'm glad putting out some stuff like that.
Yeah. So I've always appreciated seeing it and was excited that you're opening up at the gym in Murrieta, and obviously locally for a lot of our kids, they're going to get access to that. And so for someone that might be listening that might not be familiar with you, can you just give us a little bit about your background, how you got into the coaching and training space, what led you to open up these hoop house gyms, and kind of your visions for what these spaces are supposed to look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I started coaching. I was young. I was about 16. I was helping my younger brother, who was coached by Jordan Lolly. So I had a good mentor there. I took probably 4 certifications through Gannon Baker because I just loved Gannon so much, and he was a great mentor for me. I learned from him, Cody Topper, Jordan Lolly, Drew Hanlon, Evan Williams, you name it. I've been around all the best instructors and trainers in the industry, Phil Handy. So I've had a lot of really great mentors and people who have been able to pour into me so that I can go ahead and give that back. When I was 23, I want to say 22 or 23, I opened up the first gym. I had maybe like 40 or 50 clients that I was just working with often. Yassine Graham, who went to Yale, Christian Rose, who went to NNU, Chris Gonzalez, who went to he's played for the Vandals. I want to say it's Idaho, but I might be wrong.
Yeah.
Camden McCormick, who just went to UCSD. Like, I had a lot of guys who really went on to play high level. Tahina Papau, who just went to the Atlanta Dream. So obviously, like, the proof was in the pudding of everything that we were doing. And then, of course, when you're starting out, everything, and even to this day, we're open 362 days a year, pretty much. Like, that consistent level of availability is unheard of. And we just want to show up for our players every single day. So opening up the first gym, we were able to do that. And, players just don't have access to gyms 362 days a year. So we wanted to provide that and give them an opportunity to be able to come in and train and work out, regardless of whatever their practices look like, game schedule, or other sports, that they still can find time to come in and work out and improve and meet that goal. So we were able to do it once in El Cajon, do it twice in San Marcos, and then finally do it once more in Murrieta. And hopefully we can just continue to build the facilities and help as many players as we can.
Yeah, that's awesome. One thing that I really like about watching your clips and, whether it's kind of the content you're putting out or just the stuff that's up on the stories, it seems to be a lot of game-like focus where guys are going against not just maybe a defender, but then a help side defender as well, understanding making reads. So when you're bringing a player in to develop them and work on a session, can you just kind of talk through your philosophy a little bit about, what do you want players to get out of these sessions? What skills do you hope to develop? And kind of what is the best way to make a complete basketball player?
Yeah, I was just talking to one of my interns about this today. It obviously depends on what level you're at in your career, but for younger players, you probably see it just as much as I do, but a lot of kids, even coming into high school, still are terrible with using their left hand. They don't like to dribble with it. They don't like to finish with it. And to me, that's a non-negotiable. So from the ripe age of, 5 or 6 years old, we're killing that. We're not letting kids have a weakness, and that's the first one that we have to tackle. So we make them work on their left hand a lot with their finishing, with their handles. We make them more comfortable with contact because I don't ever want to have a player who's afraid of contact or afraid to be aggressive. And then probably the third piece of their with our primary focus is just making sure that they can shoot the ball correctly and consistently knock down a 15-footer. I don't need you to be able to shoot threes right away. I know that's today's basketball, but I'm developing so many kids in grade school and middle school to be prepared for high school. And if I gave you a kid as a freshman today that could go left, can go right and left, he can draw contact and consistently knock down 15 footers, I can guarantee you that's at least a JV or varsity player, because a lot of those freshman kids can't do those things. Then from there, now I can start to teach you like the real basketball IQ of the game, how to play out of the pick and roll, the DH, how to play from different catches, and how to move without the basketball and different things like that. But those are the primary skills that we want every single player to have. Then when we have the pros like you're talking about, or the college guys, when they're going through live reps in their sessions, I mean, the main thing is continuing to put them through different scenarios that they're going to see in real games, and just get their bodies and their minds acclimated to making the correct reads out of those scenarios. And as long as we keep changing the reads and keeping a
Yeah.
variable, that's exactly how it would be in a game. So um, it's more of a workout than just training for that level of players,
Yeah.
because you're not really adding too much to like a pro player's bag, or like college players a little different. You might be actually subtracting, and you might actually be, in today's game, a lot of guys are getting rid of the pump fake fly by dribble pull up and opting for the pump fake sidestep three. So,
Yeah.
sometimes you're actually changing the game a little bit, or, if a coach is saying, hey, I don't want you doing Euro steps. I don't want you doing, same foot, same hand lays. I want you doing everything off two. You might actually be subtracting things, and then forcing the player to learn how to make all the reads off two, or for whatever that coach needs. You just want to tailor it to that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's great. I love that, you've kind of got that scale moving all the way up. I mean, I think you're 100% right as a varsity head coach. When we look at guys coming in, and I tell this to people all the time, like if you can make a right hand, left hand layup and you're comfortable driving right or left, and I think at the varsity level, if you've got a good catch and shoot three where someone has to come and close you out, you can average double digits in varsity, because as soon as the
And
ball
and
gets to you,
and contact. I think that's huge for
yeah,
me. Like, you can't be afraid of
yeah.
contact.
Yeah, I agree. You got to be able to take a hit, and especially, I mean, the older you get, obviously, from middle school to high school, from a freshman to a JV to a varsity, obviously, then college, there's another huge jump. So yeah, Bruce should add that finishing, both right and left hand, being able to take that contact as you go up to the basket and finish. But if you have that, like, just that basic foundational game, like I have varsity starters that if that's their set, they're probably going to average 12, 13 points a game, and they're going to be good. So, I think that piece is huge. I think that one piece that particularly for like youth basketball that is maybe a pressure too early is this idea of like, well, I got to win or I got to look good. And so I just want to keep playing to my strengths all the time because, I have to try to beat whatever. And it's like when you're in sixth grade, okay, like that's great. And I try to tell people whether we have some youth stuff on campus or when we have freshmen coming in, like, you better make mistakes now. You better use your left hand now. You better miss those shots now, because in a game, if you can't rip and go left, like, you're only good on one side of the floor. And even now, like, we do scouts on players, and it's like, hey, this guy's an all-league guy going this way. This guy's like a subpar basketball player if you can turn him the other way.
Yeah.
And it makes the scout really easy. We've taken guys that average close to 20 a game, and all of a sudden they have 8 points and 7 turnovers, and it's all you did was jump on one side of his hip, and now they're struggling. So
That's all it is. Yeah. It's embarrassing. That's why we don't allow our, it's a non-negotiable for us that our players have to do that.
yeah, no, I think that's great. With that, do you think there are any other things that are maybe either overlooked in particularly youth training and youth development? So we talk maybe kind of middle school leading into some high school development, or just areas where maybe people are spending too much time on one thing and not enough on another?
Interesting. Yes and no. Uh, I'm not a big guy on like forcing people to do just like one specific thing. For instance, like, I understand coaches saying like finish everything off two. I get it. Or certain coaches who might say like finish everything overhand, or everything has to be a jump stop, or you know what I'm saying? Like, I enjoy giving play, like, each player is going to have their own style. It's not really something that I would say is like it's an over taught thing or it's an under taught thing, but I'm more of a, let me give you the whole pie, the whole thing. Let me try to teach you everything that you can, and you're just going to take the ones that you want. Like, maybe you're a guy who likes to drive into a snatchback, but I'm a guy who likes to drive into a pull up. We both solved the problem. Both got to our shot. It's just different ways to do it. And then not every player is going to have the exact same game. You might be a guy who drives the lane and tucks the ball between two defenders, and I might be just the guy who floats it over the top. So either way, it's just, I like to give players a lot of, teach them everything, a little bit of everything, and eventually you're going to figure out the style that works best for you. I'm trying to think, something that I actually think a lot of coaches don't teach, which I think is very important, and a lot of coaches actually discourage it, is one hand passing. The reason being is if you're always teaching two hand passing, you're never going to develop your left hand pass. And I want players who can post entry pass with the left hand. I want guys who can off the bounce as soon as you see the cutter be able to just snap it, with one hand. And I understand the ideology that you can't pump fake one hand pass, but then again, like I'm just going to get it there faster. I'm not going to need to. I agree, two hand passes are great. I just think that they're discouraging one hand passes when it could be a really great addition to your game. If you could just off the bounce, just snap a pass without having to pick it up all the time.
Yeah, I think that the two hand pass. I mean, I remember when I was, I don't know, 7, 8 years old, and that was everything here and kind of make the W with your hand and all that stuff. But I agree that as you get older, you got to be able to make passes right hand, left hand, off both hips, different skips. You're going to find guys in open spaces, and if you're only passing with two hands, it kind of limits how much you can move or what your options are. I like
Yeah,
the idea of kind of give everyone, like you said, like I guess all of the pie and letting them figure out, and each player has their own personality and kind of things that they're gonna go to based on maybe just whatever feels natural for them.
Mhm.
One of the things that I always talk to my guys about, and so interested in your perspective, is I've had players that they feel like every time they work out, like it's with a trainer, or it seems like the only times they work out are with a trainer. And so
Mhm.
I always thought it's like, hey, like, it's great to, to go to someone that's going to give you those extra reps, has some skills, that can teach you some things. But if the only time you get in the gym is with a trainer, like you're in the gym nowhere near enough. So can you maybe
Yeah,
talk to
yeah.
about, when you're developing guys and you're giving them moves, as far as, I don't know if homework's the right word, but kind of take home stuff. What are you trying to advise the guys that you're working on about? Hey, when you're not with us, these are some of the things that you should really be looking.
Well, there's two pieces to that. One, we try to stay open 7 days a week so that players always have access to us. Versus, I do know the scenario for most other players, that if they have a trainer, they probably only see him once or twice a week. So there's a lot of gaps in between there. And for every player, regardless if it's with us or with someone else, I mean, there will be gaps. And I do think it's really important to learn from different people, right? I don't like. Of course, I think I'm the best. I think I'm incredible. I think I'm a phenomenal trainer, and me and my staff and all of us. But I do think it's important that you learn from this guy and then from this guy and then from this guy, because again, same idea. Like you might learn something from this guy who maybe had a better focus on something that worked with you, and those things are important. But going back to filling those gaps, I know if we took a player and we say we only saw him twice a week, could be Monday, Friday, and on Monday you were terrible with your footwork into your pull up. By the time you show up on Friday, you shouldn't be bad at that anymore. And then on Friday, that's perfect. You fix your footwork. Well, now we're going to find your new weakness. The way that you protect the ball in your layups, you don't protect it very well. You kind of rock it and show it to the defender and you expose it. Cool. You got the whole weekend to work on that. You better not show up on Monday and still have that problem. And my job is to continue to find a new weakness for you every single time that you show up. And if we keep finding a new weakness, then it's your job to take all the time when you're at home to fix those reps so you come back and you've improved it. Why would you even show up again? And now we're just talking about the same problem that you had last week. That's 100% the player's fault and their accountability for not doing anything about that. So in that
Yeah,
aspect, it's my job is to expose you to it and to help you figure out how to improve it, and then your job is to just do as many reps as you can until you show back up again.
yeah.
Especially with shooting form, something like that is something like you're here, and I'm like, no, let's be here. You better come back and be close to this. At least, you might not be perfect, but get close.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that, that idea of making sure you're continually addressing your weaknesses and trying to build onto it. I think especially when it comes to, like, if you're spending the time, the money, the resources to go work with a trainer, you want to get the most bang for your buck. And like you said, if, I'm going to commit some time to you, and obviously, families will pay for trainers and things like that. Well, whether it's footwork, shooting form, whatever it is, if the only time I do that is with you, it's a couple of hours a week here and there, you're probably not going to see those changes. And guys they're not just making a varsity team, but being able to start and play on varsity, to be able to go play college basketball, to play professionally. Those guys are always going above and beyond. You get to college and, you're going to have individual workouts with your coaches, but there's this underlying expectation that, all right, you're going to go in for an hour here and work with coach, you have your team practice, and then you better be back in the gym, getting up shots and working on those things, as you go through. One of the things as well that I think is big and seems to be getting increasingly bigger and bigger in youth basketball is just the mental aspect of the game, whether it's how long kids are able to focus or maybe what they're focusing on. I I have kids that come in, and whether it's they don't have a realistic understanding of where they're at, and they think they're a lot better than they are, and so therefore their work ethic doesn't match where they need to be, or it's just you get kids that it's kind of the opposite end, and just every time they miss a shot, like they're in their head. I mean, we have some guys that will come into high school basketball, and so we have our freshmen come in June and do a little bit of a camp for about 3 weeks, play some games, and you see some of these kids, like, they're missing shots, and it's as if like the world is crumbling around them. When it comes to training, not just kind of the skills in the body but the mind, what do you think are some key things that your role as a trainer, you can work with players and try to fortify that mind to make sure that they're going to be better players?
That's interesting. I laugh about that because when we have younger players, we're very, very, very positive and encouraging with younger players. Lots of high fives and fist bumps and, a ton of encouragement. As you get a bit older, now I can be a little bit meaner because you're supposed to handle it. Either way, I'm a big positive reinforcement guy. Like, I love to continue to encourage you to do the right things and to do good things. And then, of course, I'm sure you've heard of like the sandwich method where you've kind of like give them a compliment, then give them the feedback, and then you kind of end it with a compliment. Those things are helpful. This is a much softer generation than other generations, so you have to be a little nicer and more positive, and that's fine if that's how they want to receive the information and that's how they're going to receive it best to help them improve. Then that's how we'll deliver it. With that being said, sorry, I'm losing my train of thought of exactly
Yeah,
how I was going to word it, but you're talking about just like the mindset thing. So, let me explain.
yeah,
With that being said, I'm a big proponent on like encouraging the correct decision making over the outcome. And so, for instance, like if you were to space out and I drove and I kicked it to you and you decided to not shoot the ball, and then, maybe you drove in and made some wild hook shot, like I'm actually going to be mad at you and frustrated because that's just not a good, repeatable, consistent solution. Like, you're supposed to shoot that and I need you to shoot that. I'm not worried about the make or the miss. I want you just to make the right decision. And then and vice versa. You might drive to the basket and attempt, the contact lefty lay and just miss it a little bit short. But I'm ecstatic and I'm jumping for joy and I'm so happy and I'm high fiving you. And I don't care that you missed it because your decision making has improved. And the fact that you allowed yourself to take that risk to try to and have an effort to improve on it. And I just essentially it's really just encouraging and discouraging good behavior and good decision making, right? I mean, same thing. If I'm driving and you space out 18 feet and you're just standing at this long mid range deep two, I'm
yeah,
livid. Just get behind the line because that's one, that's better spacing. Two, it's a longer closeout. Three, it's an extra point. So many reasons why you should be there, and then that could open up either your three ball or your pump fake drive. That's going to cause that better spacing for me. You're pulling the help side away from me when I drive, and so we're big, big, big on spacing. And so I'm always encouraging players to have better spacing, but also movement, learning to cut, learning to play off the ball, and it's more than anything. It's just always about constantly encouraging good behavior, good decision making.
yeah. No, I mean, I think that's great. I think there's a lot of good gems in there. I think that's one thing we preach on as far as team concepts with our group is like, hey, we just want you to make the right decision every time, like whether it goes in or not. Like, if you play the right way, you make those decisions, I think we're going to win more games than we don't. And you know what?
Absolutely.
If we happen to lose because we've drove and kicked and we've read the defense and we've put guys in positions and our shooter got 5 wide open threes and he just didn't have a good night and he misses something, like then so be it. Like, it
Yeah.
is what it is. There's nothing we can do, but it doesn't mean that, like, well, I made the right play once, but the shot didn't go in. So now, like, let me just try to go and do something else and see if that works, kind of sticking to the process. I think that's big. And then again, I think if more players, if more youth coaches, if more parents could be okay with reinforcing, that decision making, you'd probably have a lot of better basketball players. Again, I think it comes down to the stuff you were talking
Tons,
about
yeah.
with
The thing
with
is
the
definitely a lot of people just seeing the outcome, and you see the outcome, and then they start to base their feedback on the outcome, and that's actually not what it. You know what I'm saying? The same situation. Your guy missed a couple wide open threes, but I need you to shoot the next one because if
100%.
if you start to creep in and then you're cutting at the same time I'm driving, now we've just completely lost out on an opportunity that could have been there next time. And I'm not worried about the last few you missed. I just need you to shoot the next one with confidence So we need the next one to go in.
Yeah, no, exactly. I tell the guys all the time, like, hey, if I, as a coach, like, if you've missed enough where, like, I gotta take you out, like, it's just to kind of reset you mentally. But if you're a shooter, then I want to make sure that every time, like, your feet are there, you're ready to make the right play, because if that's your skill and your strength, then that's how you're gonna play. If you don't shoot the ball well, then you're not really any good to me if you're a shooter that doesn't shoot the ball.
I think that's something that we should consistently preach, just good feedback on good decisions and encouraging that.
Yeah. And so, I mean, you've worked with, like I said, obviously you're 5 years old, all the way up to, you've had, guys in the gym there in the NBA, working at all those levels. I'm interested kind of some of the feedback you might give to your kids, because I remember that, when I was coming up and playing basketball, I played at a pretty good level. I was on a really good high school team. I got to represent my country at the FIBA Under-17 World Championships. And I was like, man, like I'm killing at this level. I got to college, and the work that I was doing, like, that was just the baseline. Like, if I wanted to succeed at college, like, I had to do more. And then so I went and did that. And then I came back to Australia and I played professionally. And again, like, the work that I thought I was doing or how hard I was working, it was another level up. I'm like, oh, if I just stay doing this, like, I'm not going to be very good here. So, I guess seeing the different kind of guys come to the gyms at different levels, from the pros to college to high school to youth, how are you trying to mentor people to kind of understand that growth process and what they need if they want to keep jumping up those levels?
Yeah, for the young kids, I'll give you a good example. I mean, let's go ahead and use Murrieta for an example, or San Diego, even that. I'm not even sure how many high school players there are in San Diego, but let's just go ahead and say 500. I don't know,
Sure. Yeah.
just I could be way off. I could be way over under.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's
Let's
all
just
right. We'll work with a number.
500 high school players in San Diego, and then we probably train, let's say, I don't know, 100 of them, right? And so we'll finish up a workout, and I'm talking to these guys, and I'm telling them, like, okay, there's tons of high school players here, and then you're surrounded by, you know 6 or 7 other guys who just finished a workout with you, and there's probably other guys who have other trainers or other coaches or doing other workouts. So you did a good job of already separating yourself above the average high school player by just coming in to work out. But of that 500 players, there's probably nowadays, because everybody has a trainer, 250, I don't know, 50%. What do you think, more or less or so, that have a trainer or a private coach or somebody who helps them to do, extra workouts? Okay, so you put yourself at this tier, but then how do you reach the next tier? Because that's, you actually want to separate yourself from the kids around you also. Like, as much as we're all friends, they are your competition at the same time, and we're all trying to improve. And so it's just about continuing to add layers to that separation in any way you can. And I think the biggest way to do that, if you're already doing additional basketball workouts, I mean, you can't, there's only so much you can do over and over and over again.
Yeah.
I think it's the weight room, that
Yeah.
takes these
I
guys to
agree
the next
100%.
level. So, if you're already going your regular practices, you're already doing your extra workouts, the weight room, I think, is the next biggest separator that's going to take you to that next tier above a lot of those kids, whether that be through your physical attributes that you can use towards defense or rebounding or towards offense, or just if it's more like speed, agility, and injury prevention.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. I think that having the baseline, the foundational stuff is huge, but if you don't have the body for it, then it's hard to play at a varsity level, and it's pretty much impossible to play college basketball. I mean, I think that if we go back to talking about some of that, like, foundational stuff, that if you can shoot the three consistently, if you can finish right or left, you can finish through contact. Obviously, a part of that is going to be strength and conditioning. That really sets you apart. Now, if you're strong enough where you can set good screens, you can box out, you're athletic enough to go up and get rebounds. When you get in the paint, you can hold your position, stay balanced. Those are the real game changers. And I think for us, when we have freshmen that are coming in, part of what we're looking at is, who's a JV guy, who's a varsity guy. Part of that is, like, what does their body look like? Because, you can kill kids on the middle school playground, and then you come here and, the level we'll play at, and, you'll get a guy that's, 6'5", that's guiding you and kind of pushing you out. Well, the move you hit against the 5'8" kid, that doesn't work anymore. So unless you can kind of hold your own, I think that's a huge aspect, and that probably, along with kind of nutrition, is one of the overlooked areas in youth and high school basketball. And I mean, I've definitely had conversations with families about, if I wanted my kid who's now in 6th grade to make varsity, what's like one of the things he needs to do? And, it's not like in middle school you need to be like lifting super heavy and doing Olympic lifts and stuff
Right,
like
you can
that.
do
But,
body weight, you can do 5, 10 pounds, you can
yeah,
do
at least,
single
yeah,
leg
building
split
up that
squats and some
Yeah,
curls.
building up that baseline, yeah, core strength. I think that's probably one of the big things. If you can have a really strong core and then lower body as much as possible, getting into high school, you can build everything on top of that. We run a strength conditioning program with our team, and if you have a strong core, it's very easy for our strength and conditioning coach to start putting weight on and make sure your technique's right. But if your core's weak, that's the first thing that's going to get fixed before you can even think about putting anything else on
If
the
we send you a
bar.
kid who already has good technique and has a good good foundation. I mean, we've already laid down everything that we needed to. We set that foundation for you. So essentially, that's all our training boils down to. I mean, we don't have a team. We don't have a segue to do those kinds of things, and we don't want that. We're making your life easier, making your job easier. We're just going to keep sending you players who they're going to keep showing up to your program, and all of a sudden they can go both ways. They're drawing contact, and you're just like, what? I never had
Yeah.
freshmen like these, and they're like, good, you're welcome.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think that's that's awesome, and definitely as a coach, something that we appreciate, and I think it's nice, and in a sense, maybe kind of a unique space in the world of basketball where there are AAU now is so predominant, and politics get involved, and there's so many coaches that want certain things out of players, but to be able to go to a space where like, hey, this is you work out, you get better, you put in your hours, you learn your
Can I
skills.
can I give my AAU hot take, I guess?
Yeah, jump in. I'd love it.
I think AAU is tremendous for some players and horrendous for many. And this is nothing against the coaches. This is just more so parents who aren't quite fully educated. I'm not going to say uneducated, but quite fully educated on kind of how things work. But the reality is, if you're playing, if you're the eighth or ninth man on the B team, even the A team, if you're the ninth or 10th man, what I don't like about it is, and this is no one's particular fault, right? Because you have to have team fees, right? You have to have
Yeah,
coaching fees, rental fees. You got to pay for a uniform. All these things you have to play basketball. It's mandatory. But then
yeah,
you have the tournament fee, and then you're driving and you're paying for gas and then hotel, and then your parents have to pay admission fees throughout the whole weekend, and then there's concession fees if you want to buy a $7 and parking fees, and the hotel fees, the get like all these extra fees for, again, this is amazing for some players who are getting out there and playing great competition and they're playing a lot of minutes. But if you showed up to this tournament and you're playing 5 minutes of garbage time, but you still paid all the same fees as everybody else,
yeah,
you ended up racking up could be $500 bill or $1,000 bill over a weekend, and you did not get better at basketball playing just a few minutes each game. Like you didn't or your coach is pulling you out every single bad decision you make. Every time that you have one turnover, you're yanked. One missed shot, you're yanked. One defensive blow by, you're yanked. You're not getting any opportunity to grow, and then you ended up paying all that money. Your ROI is one of the worst ROIs of all. Again, this
yeah,
is I think for most players, it's like this. For the best players, the top guys, the guys who can handle criticism, the guys who can take feedback, the guys who can make mistakes and bounce back, the guys who are getting 30, 40 minutes a game because it's probably 20-minute running clock, for them, it's phenomenal. But for the kids who are playing just 7 minutes or 8 minutes or garbage time or not playing, I mean, you still paid all those fees to go out there and you're getting pulled every single time that you make a mistake and you're not growing or learning. I think it's a horrible investment for somebody in that space. Again, I'm not trying to like be salesy or be a businessman or advocate like go to training. It's just knowing where to put your time and your effort as a parent, I think would be huge. Like let's maybe develop our player much more before we decide to go to Cincinnati for a tournament and play against the
yeah,
top seventh graders in the world. And my kid's playing 2 minutes a game and like you're a cheerleader. I don't see
yeah.
the purpose or point of that.
Yeah, well, no, I'm 100% on board with your hot take. I think that, and I've had conversations with plenty of people like this, that if you're not really playing a whole lot, and let's say you maybe you get 5 shots a game. Well, if you play 4 or 5 games over the weekend, you've shot 25 game shots. Well,
Maybe,
we go,
maybe.
yeah,
And
we
and
can go
and
do
that
that.
and that's counting warm-ups.
Yeah. We can go do that in 10 minutes. I think the other part of AU, somebody, if you're that last guy on the bench, there's probably a decent chance you're paying more than the guy who is getting all the shots
I
because
didn't want
the
to say
coach
that,
is,
but it's true. But I didn't want to say that. You know, it
Yeah.
and I said we're all paying the same fees, but we both know that there's some guys in the A team who aren't paying a dollar to be there.
Yeah, no, it's I mean, I think it's definitely a tough space to be in. I mean, I've had some conversations with parents of middle schoolers, and like when if we ever do stuff on campus and youth camps, I think that for like individual sessions, like the most we've charged is like $10, and it's like, hey, come in, like let's go into the program and we'll get some work in. And I've talked to some parents, and they're telling me that their kids in seventh grade and they just paid $2,000 that month for AU and travel and all that kind of stuff. And I'm going like, I don't like me and my wife have decent jobs. Like we're both in education, but if all of a sudden I had to come up with $2,000 just on a whim that my kid could go and play in, like, honestly, not the best basketball in the world, like
Could came in and
that's
done 20 workouts, or 10 months of training almost, you know what I'm saying? Like you could have spent that time, resources, money in something that would have helped you develop prior to you making that big jump to go play against the best competition. And again, I'm not trying to hate on anybody or anything. It's just it's a you don't have enough information, right? It's just one of those things that like it's a trend. You see everybody else do it, and so you think that's the right path to go. You want to go to the big circuits and play in LA and play in Texas and play in Las Vegas and go do these things. And depending what reason you're there for, if you're there to go make some awesome memories, play basketball, eat pizza, jump in the pool with your homies, phenomenal. You know, those memories you're going to have forever. You know, you and your boys freestyling in the car on your way to your next game, whatever it may be, that's awesome. But if you're there for basketball and basketball specific and you're not getting that much playing time, there's so many better ways that you could have spent that time and that money.
yeah, I agree. And I would say I think the one thing I would encourage parents to consider is I think that a lot of AAU programs are still kind of selling exposure as why there are these premium fees to go to these events.
But it's not always the program itself that's the problem. Like, I don't have a problem with the programs. It's a lot of the tournament directors who are selling that.
That's yeah, that's I think it's true. It's a full trickle down, and I think the way college basketball is trending, unless you're kind of one of those 4 or 5 star guys that are like a top Division 1 school, people looking transfer portal, people looking JCs, people looking D2s to pull up. There's obviously some bigger tournaments. You go to a EYBL events. If you go to the top Puma circuits, the 3SSB, and you're playing on some of those teams, well, yeah, there are going to be some coaches that are sitting in the gym. But
If you're at the auxiliary gym,
yeah, if you're playing
in a
on
second gym with no air conditioning, you're not being scouted by anybody.
yeah, so I think that's I agree to your point 100%. Is what are you there for, right? I think that if you've got a bunch of friends and you love playing basketball and you want to go and like that's effectively what you're using as vacation, you get to play some basketball, hang out with your friends, that's awesome. But I think you realistically got to look at your level where if this isn't some kind of like bigger circuit, if I'm not playing on one of the main teams, if I'm not a starter, UCLA is not just going to happen to be walking around the side court and see me hit a quarter three and be like, oh, I got to sign that guy.
And again, there is some things to be learned as well, like kids playing through adversity. Maybe you start at the end of the bench and an opportunity opens up, and then it teaches you a lot. And some programs do it better than others, right? I'm not saying
I
every
agree.
program is this way, but I think just the main thing is just trying to be as informed as you can as a parent, because what I think is really good is your practices. If you go to practices and your AU coach is putting you through different scenarios and drills and helping you improve in your skill development, that's phenomenal. But if you're showing up and all you're learning is like, hey, let's run Kentucky, and Kentucky's a play where you kind of just I don't know, dribble handoff into a pick and roll, like that's cool, but you're not like what I see overseas a lot is, especially in Mexico, like they treat players like a puppet. And so they tell you the play is going to look like this. You're going to wide pin down on this side. You're going to hit the left side. You're going to, screen away over here, and the guy's going to come curl, and you have to get this nail jumper. And
Yeah.
if you don't get this nail jumper, you ran the play wrong. You didn't execute it. It's 100% your fault, even if the defense cheated it.
Yeah.
And there's less ability to read where like, oh, he cheated it, I need a back door over here and get this wide open layup. It's like, no, you need to get the nail jumper. And so they treat players like robots, like puppets, and it's more of an old school type of basketball where they're like, oh, we're going to run this play, we're going to get this shot, and it's going to work, and if it doesn't work, it's your fault. Whereas today's basketball has to should be more like, hey, we're going to run this pick and roll, the guy cheats it, we just reject it, go the other way, and then we all have good spacing so that we can make the right read from there. We'll be able to get the corner kick if he X is out on this side, we can one more to here. That should be your shot. If for any reason he also closes out and they one more to the top, and then you have your shot or your pump fake drive, and then we space that on the strong side over here. And so, we turn it straight into a DHO or fake or whatever you want to get into. I think it's just so much more important to be teaching players those reads and scenarios.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. If you're going a program that's reinforcing some of those reads, that's teaching you really how to play the game, then the more reps you can get in that, the better. But I agree, there are programs that are better or worse, and like anything, if you're and really it's the parents that are the ones that have to decide how am I going to spend my resources, and I obviously care about my kid, and so I want to feel like I'm doing the right thing by them and developing them. Really kind of dig in. Is my kid going to get better here? If I've got a program that's saying oh well, you're paying this for exposure. Is it if I go to the gym and I don't see a coach within 8 courts of where we're playing, is there a reason to be paying that? And again, to your point, it's if I could take all this money I'm spending over here and I could go and get a skills trainer, if I go get a strength conditioning coach, and I've had guys where like they've been entered in, gone to Vegas, did in 2 tournaments, played like 9 games in 4 days, and then the next week they're just dead and they don't want to like lift or work out, and I think their bodies are completely like just like ran through. It's like, all right, well, I think there's definitely like getting game reps is an important skill, but do you have those foundational basics? Are you getting stronger? And like, where are you kind of picking your times to really focus on strength and development? Because, for us, like in the high school season, we'll lift pretty heavy probably until about like kind of start of November. Then as we start the season, middle of November, it eases up a little bit. Through November into whenever we finish, February, March, it's more mobility, injury prevention, some lighter lifting and maintenance. And then, we try to let the body rest a little bit, about a month before we start hitting it heavy again. But if you play all of your high school season, then you go play all spring with AU, all summer with AU, you come back and like, you've never really had a chance to lift any heavy weight physically. How your body is going to develop from when you're a freshman to a senior is going to be completely different from a guy that actually had a good kind of calendar year of skill, strength development.
Yeah, I would take the whole summer and do strength work, skill work, and then just find some good competition locally and just compete against a couple of grades up.
Yeah, I guess, again, kind of good plug for you guys and the amount of people that are coming to the gym and finding that good competition. So maybe as we kind of wrap up here, if you just want to, plug anything about Hoop House, particularly the new one that's opening up locally here in Murrieta, and then just let anyone know that's looking for you where they can find you, Instagram or anywhere else.
Yeah, so the Hoop House, we just opened up in Murrieta off Jefferson Avenue. So right there, not too far from Temecula as well. I mean, I'm very, very excited to be in the area. I've only heard tremendous things about it, and we're so happy to be, like, we've had people that were driving from Temecula to El Cajon, San Marcos, from Murrieta as well, and so we're just excited to actually be there in the community. This weekend, we're hosting a free 3-on-3 event. Last weekend, we hosted some free workouts. Like, we're just doing as much as we can to get the community together, to get people to the gym, to get people excited about it, and give them a home. Give them a place where they can show up every single day and work out. Give them a place where they can have consistency, because greatness isn't built through just one day here and one day there. It's built through stacking those days and having consistency. So they can pretty much find everything at hoophousebeatball.com. That's where they'll be able to, search the Murrieta location, find out all about our different workouts from 6 years old up until NBA pros and everything in between. So we've already started running workouts. We have a few players who are coming in doing unlimited workouts. They're going to be really, really, really talented, and you'll see if they end up at, whatever high school or whatever program they end up with. The good thing about us is we're very apolitical. We just train kids from all programs. We don't recruit anybody. We don't have an AAU team ourselves. So we just say, hey, come in, come work out, get better, and continue playing for the program that you're with, because they need those game reps. But everything, hoophousebeatball.com is probably the best way to reach us.
Awesome. Well, appreciate having you on the podcast and sharing your thoughts and philosophy about skill development. Obviously, we're very excited to have you locally in the area, and I'm looking forward to getting some better basketball players out here in Murrieta and Temecula.
Awesome. I appreciate it.
All right, mate. Thanks.
Yeah,
all right. See you later.